If there's one person I'm not taking relationship advice from, it's Chris Watts. Just a couple of years before he barbarically murdered his pregnant wife Shanann and then both of his daughters, he uploaded a video to YouTube where he is given a presentation on how to fix relationships. Yet years later, he couldn't even take his own advice. The presentation was a part of a communications course that he was doing, and eerily throughout the presentation, he mentions things that he himself would go on to do. He talks about becoming bored of the daily routine and uses the example of beginning an affair with someone at work as something that'll at first excite the person involved and then cause a massive strain on their relationship, making it fail and crumble. We know that that is exactly what happened within Chris and Shanann's marriage after Chris began dating his co-worker Nicole Kessinger. He stressed the importance of communication with a chilling warning, saying, quote, "Don't keep things bottled up because it will come back to bite you." Within the presentation, he goes on to say how having a baby can help fix a broken marriage, yet he still strangled his pregnant wife to death and then smothered his 3- and 4-year-old daughters. At the end of the 9-minute long video, he says, quote, "Relationships are hard, but they're worth it in the end." If you want to hear this case in its entirety, in a way that you may never have heard it before, make sure to check out my brand new episode on the True Crime with Caitlin podcast, where I have just uploaded an episode on this case, which is over an hour and a half long. True Crime with Caitlin is available to listen to wherever you stream.
Her underwear was found hanging from a tree and she was never seen from again. In 2015, 21-year-old Sophia Kutsier, who was a medical student, traveled from Amsterdam to Uganda for an internship. She loved it so much there that she decided to stay longer and explore the country with 2 friends before heading home. But almost immediately, those friends noticed that something wasn't right. Sophia had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and she started showing signs of a manic episode. She was barely sleeping, wandering off alone, and she even told her friends that she was treating this trip like a challenge to survive. One night, she disappeared for hours, and later on she claimed that she spent the night in a lookout tower that was inside a wildlife park. Her friends were concerned, but they had no idea what was about to happen next. On October 28th, while staying near Murchison Falls National Park, Sophia told her friends she was going to go to the bathroom, but she never came back. Within minutes, park rangers began searching for her, but there was no sign of her anywhere. And the next day, something disturbing was discovered. Sophia's belongings started showing up near a riverbank, but not in a good way. Pieces of her clothing had been tied onto branches, and her underwear was found hanging high in a tree. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no drag marks, nothing. Investigators first believed that she may have been attacked by a wild animal, or maybe she wandered into the river during a manic episode, but that didn't explain how her clothes were found the way that they were. And it gets even more unsettling because Sophia's family believes that the scene may have been staged. Later on, they did DNA testing and revealed that an unknown male's DNA was found on her clothing, but it couldn't be linked to anyone that was involved in the search. To this day, Sophia has never been found, and what really happened to her remains a mystery.
This 19-year-old ate a slug on a dare, and it changed his life forever. This is the story about Sam Ballard, and he was a 19-year-old from Australia. Sam was known for his love of the outdoors and playing rugby. This all changed in 2010 when he was drinking with his friends one night. A slug went by and his friends dared him to eat it. He obviously accepted the dare, didn't think anything of it, was laughing it off, but what he did not know is that that snail had rat lungworm. Within a few days, his legs started hurting, his body started hurting, and he ended up going to the hospital. At the hospital, he was diagnosed with a rare type of meningitis due to the rat lungworm. He fell into a coma for over a year. He woke up, he had severe brain damage, lost the ability to walk, to talk, to function normally. Sam went on to live about 8 years, but his life was obviously super complicated after this incident. Sam ended up passing away in 2018 at the age of 28. What's so sad about this entire situation is that his life changed forever, and it ultimately took his life over a simple dare.
How does he go from Hollywood star to standing over his ex's body with a butcher's knife covered in blood? It was summer 2008 in beautiful San Marcos, California. Shelley Malil was living the dream. He'd gone from being a very young boy with big dreams of making it in Hollywood to actually making it in Hollywood. He started out in New York and then moved to LA and got super popular roles in shows like ER and Scrubs, and then starred in The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Everyone was like, wow, this guy is going places. His career is going from strength to strength. In 2007, though, he met a woman called Kendra Beebe. Now, there was a pretty big age gap. She was 35, and I think he was in his mid-40s. They seemed to hit it off and seemed to the outside world like they were really in love. They jetted off to Mexico and seemed to have a great time. Until a year later, when suddenly Kendra ended things. Her friends were like, what's going on? We thought you were happy. But she said to them, no, this guy isn't who I thought he was. He became very controlling, very jealous. She was like, do you know what? I just don't want to live that way. I don't want my partner to be that way. So she ended things. But like so many abusive partners, Shelley absolutely begged her. He was relentless and pressured her to meet up with him again. That August, he was like, please, let's go for a walk on the beach. Like, I want to talk to you one-on-one. So eventually Kendra gave in, but it was a trap. Shelley drove Kendra to a secluded beach, shoved her out the car, and drove off in a cloud of sand. She was stranded. Meanwhile, he raced over to her house. He broke in and started helping himself to all of her prized possessions. He locked her out. She just had an absolute nightmare trying to make it home from the beach and make it back into her own property. But it was about to get a hell of a lot worse. Kendra finally managed to make her own way home, shaken up but alive. She thought maybe that was the last time she would hear from her ex. He'd pulled this horrible stunt, but hopefully he was out of her life. But she couldn't have been more wrong. A couple of days later, she was chilling in her garden with a glass of wine and a friend, when all of a sudden, out of the blue, Shelley burst into the garden. Now, originally, the friend thought that Shelley was kind of running up to her to give her a hug. It was almost like he lunged at her. And then they saw the blood. Now, the friend tried grabbing the knife off Shelley immediately, but he frantically plunged it again and again into Kendra's chest. When the friend eventually did overpower Shelley, he ran into the kitchen and grabbed a butcher's knife. Now, Kendra ran into the house desperately trying to get away, but she was like slipping on her own blood. It was brutal. She collapsed onto the floor as he stabbed her yet again, first with the butcher's knife and then with a broken wine glass. And there was no doubt he wanted to kill her. He then grabbed a cushion and tried to smother her as she scrambled free. I have no idea how this woman managed to get the energy to get up and run to try and get help after being stabbed 23 times. Now, neighbors heard the commotion and ran to the front of the house just in time to see Kendra fall onto the floor into a heap. Shelley scrambled away like the absolute coward that he is, and Kendra was raced to hospital. By some miracle, she managed to survive this horrific attack. And she honestly is just one of the most brave and courageous women that I've heard of recently. Police eventually hunted Shelley down at a train station, undoubtedly trying to flee. He tried to plead not guilty at trial and said that this was all him acting in self-defense. I'm sorry, you were in her own garden with a knife. It was pretty laughable. This guy was supposed to be a professional actor, but the entire jury saw through his victim act. But prepare for your blood to boil. He ended up serving just 8 years in prison before he was released. Brave survivor Kendra spoke out after his release, saying she lived her life in constant fear, and I'm not surprised.
She claimed that a 6-year-old child consented, and that's why she SA'd her. 22-year-old Abigail Roberts was staying at her family friend's house for a few weeks. Abigail's friend also had a 6-year-old daughter who Abigail had taken an interest in. Abigail told detectives that the child asked to perform certain inappropriate acts because she wanted to be a pole dancer when she grew up. Abigail admitted to inappropriately touching and engaging in S acts with the 6-year-old little girl. Abigail used her phone to take 10 videos and 30 pictures while she was SAing this little girl. Abigail had also shared these inappropriate videos and photos with at least one other person. When an investigator asked Abigail if she understood that a 6-year-old child is legally unable to give consent, Abigail reportedly responded, no. The images and details in this case are so graphic and disturbing that the inmates in the courtroom that were there for unrelated hearings were moved to tears. As of right now, Abigail has not been sentenced yet because her case is still in the early stages following her arrest in April of 2026. This case absolutely just broke my heart, and I cannot imagine how much courage it took for that little girl to speak up about what happened to her. It must have been so terrifying. But What do you guys think about this case?
This is the terrifying moment this stalker got up the ladder to her flat with a knife. It was the 25th of May 2023 in Orrefors in Sweden. I'm going to call the woman in this case Jane because she's kept anonymous in a lot of the news articles about this. So Jane had been dating this guy, 26-year-old Mohammed Amana from Algeria. But for reasons that are probably going to become quite obvious in this case, she had broken up with him. She just wasn't happy in the relationship and she said, nah, I'm out. But he was hounding her. He would not give up. He'd be calling her, texting her, begging, trying to follow her, harassing her with message after message. It was terrifying. In the end, she started seeing a new guy and went to stay with him, partly actually for her own safety because she didn't want to be left alone. She didn't know what her ex was going to try and do. She hoped that staying with a friend meant that she couldn't be tracked down by this crazy guy. She was very, very wrong. After stalking her, he figured out where she was staying and armed himself with a kitchen knife. Somehow he got a huge ladder and decided to scale it to get access to the balcony of the building. Now, Jane and her new guy were at home at the time and were absolutely horrified when they started seeing all of this unfold. It was like it happened super fast. It was all going in like fast forward, but it also felt like it was happening in slow motion. Jane saw her ex approaching and ran into the bathroom and barricaded herself inside. But Mohammed had another target. After reaching the top, he smashed the balcony door with a rock and slashed at Jane's friend. He was shouting, "I will kill you." Shockingly, there were several witnesses that saw this happen, and I know that in the moment it could have been scary, but like he's at the top of the ladder, you're at the bottom. Surely somebody could have like threatened to pull the ladder or just pushed it a little bit. Thank God emergency services were en route and arrested him before he could kill either of them. The friend was raced to hospital and thankfully did survive the brutal attack. Despite all of this being caught on camera and the fact that he was stalking this girl prior to this and making threats to kill, he was given a measly 2 years in prison. Now, some people have said online that they would have thrown boiling water out of the window, but personally, my kettle takes absolutely bloody ages to boil. I just feel like maybe even grabbing some water and throwing it out of the window could have like thrown him off balance, but I guess hindsight is a great thing.
This 20-year-old woman is facing a first-degree murder charge after she allegedly stabbed her father to death, but there is so much more to this case than what's being told in the news. So her name's Malaya Allen. She's 20 years old from Lexington, North Carolina. And before I switch to a different photo of her, I want to point out her eyes and the bandage on her neck. So on April 17th, deputies with the Davidson County Sheriff's Office responded to a 911 call at around 7:20 in the morning that came from Malaya. She was complaining that she had several stab wounds. They transported her to a hospital to be treated, but during the investigation, they did a welfare check at a nearby residence and found her father, 44-year-old Michael Allen, deceased from multiple stab wounds. An autopsy was done on April 20th and determined that he died from sharp force trauma, and the manner of death was a homicide. The very next day, she was discharged from the hospital and taken immediately into custody. Now, like I said, police got the call on April 17th. You'll notice the day before, April 16th, she posted this on her Facebook. It says, "This will be a murder scene. Stop my daddy's voices." So because of this, they said the killing was premeditated. But let's go back in time a little bit. In 2019, when she was just 13 years old, her father received numerous charges involving her, including exploitation, statutory rape, incest. I don't want to finish the word because I don't want my video to get taken down, but you know the word. Child essay, and all of the charges ended up getting dismissed because she told them that she had lied. Apparently, she was pressured into withdrawing all of her claims in order to protect him, and she was scared of him. So because of that, and the fact that they apparently didn't have sufficient evidence, it all got dropped and nothing happened to him. And then apparently in June of 2022, she tried to run away from home, and there was this missing person flyer that circulated. And you'll notice in photos of her over the years, she has a black eye, cuts, scrapes, bruises. And apparently she told people and asked for help, but nothing ever happened. Look at her caption on this one. "Sew the eyes shut of man and seize the lies that spill from his jaw." And that was just on March 18th. The mind is the last prison most people never escape. Here's another one. Now, this might just be me, but in a lot of pictures, I feel like she looks completely defeated. And even when she's smiling, she looks sad. Now, police haven't disclosed exactly what happened that day yet. I mean, she had several wounds. He had fatal wounds. But obviously something happened between the two of them, and I'm wondering if she finally just had enough.
A Love is Blind contestant has been charged with attempted murder. Love is Blind, the show on Netflix, you guys have probably watched it. I've watched it. It's a big show and it's spread around the world fairly quickly. It started in the US in 2020 and expanded into now 11 countries around the world. There is a Love is Blind Brazil, Love is Blind Japan, Sweden, UK, Germany, Argentina, Mexico, you get it. And if you don't know, it's essentially a social experiment in which single men and women all look for love and get engaged all before meeting in person. They fall in love without ever seeing each other, only talking through a wall in what the show calls pods. Once the proposal happens, then you're taken on a trip with the other couples, spending time with your now fiance for the first time ever, then you move in together, then the wedding happens. All of that is filmed, and then the show ends with the wedding showing all the remaining couples either saying, I do or I don't. It's a pretty crazy concept, but entertaining nonetheless. Love is Blind Argentina began to air in November 6, 2024. Among the contestants was 29-year-old Santiago Martinez, a charming guy with decent chat, and a 24-year-old woman named Emily. Emily was a journalism student from Buenos Aires. She seems like such a sweet, kind-hearted person. She went on the show, like everyone else, to find love, and Emily from the start was very forthcoming about her reasons for going on the show. On camera, she opened up about a previous relationship that she was in that ended up being really toxic, quite aggressive, and all in all, very unhealthy and damaging to her mental health. And she was very open-minded about doing this Love is Blind experiment with the hope of finally finding a happy, healthy relationship. And there was a point in which she thought that she found it with Santiago. In the pods, they were both very vulnerable with each other. Emily shared a lot of things that she had been through in the past, really putting herself out there, but it was going well. Emily and Santiago were the first couple out of all the participants on the show to get engaged. There were a total of 5 proposals in their season. They fell in love through a wall. On the show, Santiago talked a lot about how he had had this dream about a girl named Emily, saying that he didn't know what she looked like, obviously, but he knew the name from his dream, and that meant something to him. He proposes, she says yes. The day after is the reveal in which they see each other for the first time. The doors open, they see each other for the first time, walk towards each other, and they were happy. And at the end of the show, they go through with the wedding. They say, I do, at the altar. Her family approved of him. Emily and Santiago themselves were excited, and it seemed like love was indeed blind. But as we know, not everything that we see online is true, because behind closed doors, things between the couple were not all rainbows and butterflies. In fact, they were far from it. After the wedding on the show and when their season ended, Emily and Santiago wanted to plan to get married again, but in a more intimate setting with their loved ones and no cameras. But it was when they were in the early stages of planning for that Santiago's behavior towards Emily took a very scary turn. There had been red flags. For example, on the show, when the couple took the trip to Tulum, Mexico to spend quality time with each other for the first time after the engagements, Santiago was known to be very emotional, but not in control of his emotions. At least not in the way that Emily had hoped that he would be, because he would get jealous and then Emily would have to communicate her boundaries again to him, saying, I have been in a toxic relationship before, I do not want that again, so let's work on this before we say I do. Santiago also openly said that his past relationships hadn't worked out because he had a habit of hurting people that he loved. Red flag. Another scene on the show that was particularly alarming was one in which Santiago was seen abruptly taking Emily's plate away because he believed that she was eating too much. Things like that felt very, very much so controlling in nature, but Emily was happy before things really went south, or at least she was trying to be. She would later say, quote, he would get upset about anything I did that did not make him feel safe. Then he would tell me that I was the love of his life and apologize while crying, end quote. So it was this cycle of control, anger, apology, and love over and over again. Emily stayed because she loved him, or she thought that she did, or she wanted to, because she believed that he would change, and because she had already announced to the world that she was so happy that this was her second chance at love. I also feel like it takes a special kind of evil person to sit there and listen to this person tell you about past relationships that have really, really hurt them and let them be vulnerable to you, to sit there and listen and then comfort them, only to turn around and do the worst thing that you could possibly do and put their life in extreme danger on purpose, fully knowing that that person trusts you. That is not what love looks like, by the way. I know I have young listeners. Do not put up with that, because that will not end well. You don't deserve it. Nobody does. And obviously, I'm not saying that Emily did anything wrong at all. Obviously, she had no idea of knowing that this would happen. All she is guilty of is trying to love this guy. By early 2025, the couple had announced that they were getting married in a church ceremony with family for their 1-year anniversary, and Emily's mother and sisters decided to throw her a bachelorette party. It was a fun night until it wasn't. Because when she got home that night, Santiago was waiting, and he wasn't talking to her at first, but he was very, very clearly angry. He was furious about the bachelorette party, about the fact that she went, about how she had dressed, about what he had seen on social media about it. He was not having it. He grabbed her phone and told her that she wasn't going anywhere. He told her that she had disrespected disrespected him by going out and having fun and said that that's not how a woman in a relationship should behave. She tried to leave. Quote, I asked him to please stop blocking the door to the room, that I wanted to leave. He told me that if I left, I should take all my stuff, end quote. So she started packing, and then Santiago snapped, calling her names, launching himself at her, knowing that he could easily overpower her. Quote, he threw himself at me and started to and covered my mouth so I wouldn't scream. I bit his hand so he would let me go, and then he pushed my face against the bed and started hitting me on the head, end quote. He also spat on her in the middle of everything, pinning her down and bringing up that he saw videos of her having fun and dancing on TikTok, saying something to the effect of, oh, well, you weren't crying then, how about you cry now? Emily was terrified that she would not make it out of the apartment that night. She feared for her life. And in an attempt to save her life, she, I guess, pretended to be on his side. She knew that she had to calm him down so he would not keep hurting her. She tried her best to neutralize the situation and act like everything was fine. When he cooled off and started cleaning up, Emily then slipped out of the apartment and she ran. She fled to her family's house to hide out from Santiago. And as soon as she could, she filed a complaint with the public prosecutor. She reported Santiago Martinez for gender-based violence and attempted murder. A couple of days later, this was all over social media in Argentina. And because they were very much so a public couple, I imagine that she was getting a lot of people reaching out to her for interviews. She agreed to go on a morning show, and when she did, she had a black eye and she was very clearly emotional. That interview went viral across Argentina. Her mother would later tell the court that when Emily came home after leaving Santiago that night, she looked disfigured with a bruised and black swollen eye. When news of this report broke, Santiago's initial response was published. He referred to the incident as a family fight and sent Emily a message that was broadcasted publicly. Quote, obviously I'm not asking you to forget, but I can assure you that those days of fighting, shouting, insults, getting angry, and changing are going to disappear. And yes, I failed you and I made mistakes like I never thought I would in my life. My childhood traumas and that shitty childhood finally surfaced, and I'm willing to work on it to fix it. By the way, this is all translated, so I'm sorry if it's not word for word exactly, and if anything is wrong in the comments and you know it, please just comment it down below. We can figure it out together. Anyway, prosecutors would later use this public apology as a confession that the fight did in fact take place. He was saying that he did things that he regretted because he knew that he did. Santiago Martinez was arrested in early March 2025 at his parents' house. Emily heard about the arrest while she was at her parents' house, where she had been staying since fleeing the relationship, and when her lawyers called to tell her, she broke down in tears, not of sadness this time, but of relief. Quote, the fear will continue to be there, but knowing that he is in custody gives me a little peace of mind and security when I go out on the street, she added. Quote, I was really afraid because I didn't know what he could do. Seeing the news about girls who made complaints and unfortunately lost their lives at the hands of these aggressors, obviously it hurts, and you know that you could end up being one of them. That is why the fact that he is behind bars today gives me a little peace and tranquility, end quote. Oh, and I forgot to say, when things were made public, Santiago went over to Instagram to try and defend himself, saying, quote, the first thing I want to say is that I do not justify violence in any way. I was the first person to acknowledge my mistake and to apologize privately. And today I publicly take responsibility for what I did, but that does not mean I take responsibility for trying to woman I loved. All of that was unfounded and created by the media circus. Criminal experts said in their reports that the injuries were minor, that there were never any danger of death, and that she was always free to do whatever she wanted to do, end quote. I'm happy to say the court disagreed with him. His conviction was announced March 25th of 2026. Santiago Martinez was sentenced to 15 years in prison after the court found him guilty of all 3 charges. That same day, Emily spoke to the press outside of the courthouse saying, quote, I can't believe it. I feel it's over. I'm finally going to have peace. Justice has been done. I have 15 years of peace ahead. I don't know what will happen when he gets out, but I hope that the justice system continues to protect me. If he tried to when I gave him everything, I can't imagine what he might try to do to me or my family after 15 years of anger. We need reality TV shows to start doing more serious background checks into the people that they bring onto TV in an entirely different situation. Emily could not be here today. That is all I have for today. Let me know if you guys have heard about this. I have not seen this much on social media, so curious to know who has heard about this, or maybe if you watched that season, let me know your thoughts. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you guys for spending time with me today. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.
This is the story of Marcus Wesson. Marcus was born on August 22nd, 1946 in Kansas. He was the oldest of 4 children. His family later moved to California. His father was abusive and an alcoholic. He later abandoned the family. His mother was a religious fanatic. He dropped out of high school and ended up joining the Army, where he was an EMT driver. He left the Army and ended up moving in with an older lady named Rosemary Solorio and her 8 children in San Jose, California. In 1971, they had a son. In 1974, Marcus, who's now 27 years old, asked his girlfriend Rosemary if he could marry her daughter, Elizabeth, who was only 15 at the time, and Rosemary agreed. Marcus and Elizabeth went on to have 10 children, one who passed away as an infant. In 1989, Marcus and Elizabeth took in Elizabeth's nieces and nephews, 7 of them. So now they are a family of 16. Now, Marcus didn't have no income, no job. He wasn't doing a damn thing. The family lived on welfare and they would lay their heads literally anywhere, sometimes in a shelter. They were even living in a big army tent in the mountains in Santa Cruz. The children would scavenge for food in restaurant and fast food dumpsters, while Marcus was eating snacks, hamburgers, hot dogs, regular food. When the kids was of age, they would have to work and all their earnings will go to Marcus. When they asked Elizabeth, why your husband don't work? She said, you can't work when you're on welfare. In 1990, Marcus was convicted of welfare fraud and perjury. He was sentenced to 5 years probation. And they say that around this time is when he started sexually abusing his daughter and his nieces. He went on to marry 3 of his nieces and 2 of his daughters in a crazy ass ceremony that he had made up. He fathered children with all of them. By 2000, the family had moved to Fresno in a house that was badly damaged by a fire. The neighbors didn't know exactly how many people lived in this house. The family rarely interacted with the outside world. He had isolated them so bad. He was even homeschooling them, teaching them Christianity, apostolic. He was even teaching them vampire symbolisms. Then he would teach the girls only. He told them their domestic responsibilities. He told them that they were there to serve men. He taught the girls how to perform oral sex as young as 8 and 9. Their duties were to wash his dreadlocks and scratch his beard and his armpits, I think I read. Crazy, some crazy shit. Marcus told the children that he was a prophet, often describing himself as Jesus or God. He told the children that they had to obey him because he was their Lord and that the outside world was evil and seeking to destroy their holy family. The girls and the women in the family wore long dresses and they covered their hair. Outside romance was forbidden. You couldn't make eye contact with no man that was not family. The women were allowed to work. He kept them under control with violence and fear. He preached that the police were devil in disguises and that suicide was the only acceptable answer if someone was to ever try to break this family up. The children were told if the authorities ever came to try to take them away to kill themselves. He instructed the older ones to kill their children and then kill themselves. And he must stay alive so he can tell the authorities why all this happened. He held sermons on this, lectures. He will repeatedly ask the children, are you ready to die for the Lord? This is crazy. Despite of his control, the veil was lifting. The children were getting older. They was realizing that this shit ain't right. And some of his nieces ended up escaping. And 2 of them are Ruby and Sophina. They went on and started rebuilding their own lives. But they had children by Marcus and they wanted their children back. So this led to a long, ugly custody battle because Marcus kept refusing all the requests. Giving up those children was not an option for Marcus. And with the custody battle getting deeper and he's getting closer to the children being taken away, he went to purchase a dozen mahogany coffins. And he told the antique dealer that they were boat projects for his children. In 2003, Marcus and his wives and children moved into an office building, but the city was trying to evict them. And Ruby and Sophina found out that his next location was about to be Washington State. And they like, nah, we can't have that. On March 12, 2004, Ruby and Sophina went back to Marcus's place trying to get their children. When he refused, they called the police for backup. But the police was there just so things wouldn't get out of hand. But from the end of the driveway, Ruby and Sophina are pleading with him, to give us our kids back. But when Marcus stepped out of the door from the house, he had blood all over him. As soon as they seen that, the police pulled the guns on him, but Marcus didn't resist. He put his hands right behind his back. But when they entered the home, in the back room was 9 dead bodies piled on top of each other in a room full of coffins. Marcus had coerced one of his older daughters/wives, who was 25 years old, Sabrina, to kill the 8 other victims. And then she turned the gun on herself. This is his other oldest one, who is 17, and she was also one of his wives. The youngest victims were 3 one-year-olds. They were all his children, 2 daughters and 1 son. His trial started in June 2005, and even though he's trying to say he didn't pull the trigger, his daughter did. Boy, you know they couldn't wait to testify against you. You know, all them children, they couldn't wait. Elizabeth testified, his legal wife that he married when she was 15. She testified to get immunity. But the other children and nieces and nephews and young adults, they testified about the sexual abuse. They testified about the physical abuse. He would start sexually abusing the girls at the age 8. He was charged with 9 counts of first-degree murder and 14 counts of sex crimes. On June 29th, 2005, he was sentenced to death, as he should be. He is still on death row awaiting that needle. He in San Quentin too, the worst jail ever. This was sick. He really disgusts me. And we need to go all the way back to Rosemary, to the first lady, who said yes to him marrying her daughter. Because where you at, bitch? You need to be locked up too.